TPC a little over 5 years ago, because in fact the previous owners came to this commission a few months ago to get an extension to it. And the new owner of the property still wants to build a medical office building, but they want to put the building a little bit closer to the street. I don't think it's even any change to the net size of the building. It might, but the applicant can make that presentation. So I recommend we add that to the agenda for tonight under new business. This project requires some action by the Wetlands Commission, so you won't be able to act on it until the Wetlands Commission has, but you can certainly discuss it and let the applicant make their presentation.
Any comments or questions for the planner on the change to the agenda on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll put that on as an additional item. We have the, I see you have on the agenda where we have the Wetlands Commission, and there's some people here. Where is that on the?
That's new business item B. If you want to move it up on the agenda, you can certainly do that and take it up sooner.
Yeah, I would like to, I know if I went to their meeting, I would like them to have me on first so that they go to a lot of meetings. And if we could possibly move that up closer to the beginning so that we could discuss that and they don't have to stay here through an hour of other business.
Okay, a motion to that effect would be in order.
Okay, where are we going to move it to, Dominic? Move it up to after, before the public hearing?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm just going to find it.
It's
Item B.
B under new business on the
Okay.
second page.
I'll make a motion. We move discussion for the deleted section 4.4.6, prohibition on principal buildings within 50 feet of a wetland or water course, and move it to before public hearings on our agenda.
Second. Okay.
Motion made, second. Any comments from the commissioners? You think that's a good idea?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move that over to that section. That, any other changes, Mr. Planner?
No.
Next item is public participation. Anyone wishing to speak on any item that's not on the agenda, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, remarks by commissioners. Any remarks at this time? Oh, good. Okay, so we're into the item that we just moved from new business, item B, we're taking up now. If the commissioners from the Wetlands Commission are here, representatives, please come forward, sit at the table with us, and let's have a discussion on to. We have 3 members here, Mr. Chairman, including yourself.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for accommodating us. Commissioner Casasanta, Commissioner Zelik, and Commissioner Paskowitz at your service.
Okay. Mr. Planner, you want to start, or you want them to start?
Well, okay. Well, I'll be brief. I wrote a 2-page memo, which I believe everybody has seen. So I just want to read one portion of it, because the memo goes into the history of the regulation. So rather than read that right now, I'm just going to read the paragraph that speaks to why it was deleted by TPC. The TPC voted to delete section 4.6.6 because, under the terms of the regulation, the Conservation Commission must first issue a favorable report, i.e. grant a wetlands permit, for the proposed building before TPC could even consider granting a waiver. And since the proposed building would have already been thoroughly vetted by the Conservation Commission, there are no, quote, specific criteria, end quote, that the staff could come up with to differentiate between the building that should be granted a waiver and the building that shouldn't be granted a waiver. That wouldn't have been arbitrary. And as the commission recalls, that was one of the problems we had with our other waiver regulations, was that they didn't have any specific criteria. They didn't have an objective purpose, which is what the court ruled a couple of years ago, that zoning regulations, if they want to grant waivers, have to have a specific purpose and very specific criteria. So I'll stop at that point, Mr. Chairman, and let the members of the Conservation Commission address this.
Okay, you came last meeting, you gave us an update of where you were coming from, but if you could expand, on what we talked about at the last meeting, and then we'll have a discussion with the commissioners here, and come to a conclusion whether we're gonna, and the procedure would be to put this on for public hearing, wouldn't it?
Well, it depends. If the commission.
If we wanted to reinstate it.
Right.
Okay. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would first and foremost urge the commission to go forward with public hearing to reinstate Regulation 4.4.6. To respond to the planner's remarks, I'd like to first ask, did 4.4.6 in its previous wording include the option to grant a waiver? Was that in the wording?
Mr. Planner.
Right, as I put in my memo, because I did some research on this, when the regulation was originally proposed or made part of the regulations back in 1988, that's when it originally came up, and there was no waiver at that time. The waiver language was added about 10 years later.
Okay, so 1988 it was when this regulation was introduced?
Correct.
Okay. So I think it is important that the commission understands the history as to why the regulation was put in place, because it's not a wetlands regulation, it's a TPZ regulation. Even though a permit is required by wetlands for any type of activity within the upland review area, we do not in any way, shape, or form regulate buildings. Prior to coming to this meeting, I was reviewing the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and they clearly lay out the three different commissions: a planning commission, a zoning commission, and a wetlands commission. The zoning commission having the authority as to where structures are placed within a development. So again, there is nothing within the inland wetlands regulations to regulate building. It's strictly, our purview is regulated activities, which are typically soil disturbances or material deposits within a upland review or wetlands. Commissioners, anything else to add?
No, I concur with Chairman Zeller.
Okay, I'll open it up to the Planning Commission members. Stanley.
I have two questions. I'm a little confused here. Number one, we can't, by Judge Modis's ruling, waive anything. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And in this, particularly in these instances, that's why it was taken out of the regulations, because the language that was in there had the waiver provision in it. Am I correct, Mr. Planner?
Right.
Okay. So then that leads me to my second question is, and I'm not sure which way this should go. Should something be built, wanted to be built in the wetlands within the 50-foot buffer, should they go before the Wetlands Commission to get approval first, then come to us for approval?
That's the way it is.
Which would.
That's the way it was under that
Right,
provision.
but we're not waiving it.
No, we don't have the authority to waive it.
Right. So why can't we put it back in that way there?
Without a waiver.
Without a waiver.
There's, right. Go,
This
like
way-
where they started, they
That's-
initiated, when they first put this in the regulations, they did not have a waiver on it. Why can't we
Correct.
go back to that original basis?
Right. That's because this commission doesn't necessarily know all the rules and regulations of wetlands, so I would think it has to go through the Wetlands Commission first to make sure makes all their criteria, then come here and get approval. We're not waiving it, we're going to approve something.
Yes, and that's correct. So typically, wetlands would not see any application with a primary structure within 50 feet of the wetlands, because the TPZ already had regulation in place.
Yeah, but it got to
preventing
go to
that.
you first,
So
Jeff.
That's
the
my
12
question.
right,
Does it
so
go to them
It
first
has
and
to
then
go
us?
to them first. So if it goes
Right.
to them
If-
first, you would have the bite at the apple first by telling the applicant, you're in the 50-foot thing and we don't approve it. You don't pass it on to the TPZ. You have the authority to do that.
Right, but typically,
So-
we wouldn't even see an application come in front of us with a structure within 50 feet of the wetlands, simply because it was already not permissible by TPZ. So in the 12 years that I've been on the Wetlands Commission, I have never seen an application come before us with a primary structure within 50 feet of the wetlands.
Any other commissioner remarks? Stanley, did that answer your question or to make it more?
Well, somewhat, I guess. I guess what I'm saying is that if the structure was within the 50-foot wetlands area, okay, and it met all of your criteria, then it should be passed on to planning and zoning. That's what I'm asking. Can we do that? Because we don't have the authority to waive or anything, according to the judge that ruled.
Well,
That's my question.
let me try to help out here. At the moment, there is no longer any prohibition from the zoning's rules to putting a principal structure within 50 feet of a wetland. So at this moment, if somebody had a vacant lot with wetlands on it and they wanted to put a house within 50 feet of a wetland, they would go to the Conservation Commission.
Correct.
Get that plot plan approved, and then go for the building permit. That's what's going to, if someone came in today, that's how it would work. If the commission wanted to reinstate the original regulation, procedurally, you could, obviously, because it was there back in '88. I have some thoughts on whether that's, well, I have some thoughts on that, but we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But if you wanted to reinstate the original rule, you could certainly do that. That would be fine with the judge in the case where the judge ruled that you can't do waivers. That judge, well, I won't put words in his mouth, but if the commission had simply deleted the last sentence of 4.4.6 and basically turned the clock back to 1988, yeah, the commission could have done that. And that sounds like what the commission is considering doing tonight. And if it did, right, then no principal building could be built within that 50-foot buffer. A garage, a shed, something like that, a doghouse could be, but that doghouse or shed or garage would have to get a wetlands permit because that would be a disturbance in the upland review area.
So you have the authority without the TPC to stop it at your meeting. But if you think that we need to have that language in our regulations to protect more protections for your commission, and I'm getting a feeling from my commissioners that we'll put it on for a public hearing and we'll put it back in with the way it was originally proposed, that the 1988 provision without the language of a waiver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so Mr. Planner, will we put this on for the next meeting for scheduling?
Yes.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I have to go back into the agenda. I skipped right over my zoning enforcement officer's report, so we'll go back to that and then we'll get into the public hearing.
Okay, so you all have the report. As you can see, we're still trying to focus on temporary signs and, at this point, education and trying to get the business community to understand that we now have a new procedure. So any discussions that I have with folks that are either receiving these letters or coming in, just letting them know that we have a new process, and that it is not as it allows for more, obviously, it allows for more signage, or longer periods of time. I reached out to Gail Whitney and let her know that if anybody has any questions about that, they can certainly call and I'll go out and meet with them and we'll discuss what they can do and how it works with separating distances and sidewalks and trying to make this as achievable as possible for anybody who may not understand. I also talked with Craig about the building permit system that we have. We have worked in the temporary sign process. We're still finishing it up, but it should allow us to do reporting and get you better information if we need to provide that to you. If in 6 months you want to know how many permits were issued, there's an inspection provision, so I should be able to show you if inspections were done, if we saw issues, and that may help us determine in a year from now if there's any problems that the regulation is causing, or it should just be a much cleaner administration of the new reg, which should hopefully make it easier for the businesses because their application process will be more streamlined.
Okay.
That's what we got.
Any questions for the zoning enforcement officer on his report so far up until this point on this? Most of it is signage, which we've been concentrating on since we put on in the new regulations for temporary signs. One of the things I think that you have to be aware of, Mike, is that some of the people are aware that we made the changes to the regulations and they're putting signs out without coming. So there are some people that have A-frame signs that you're going to have to tell, they're not prohibitive, but you have to come to us, they have to come to the DPZ and apply and take a permit. So there are some out there, not very many, but there are some.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just curious, through you, have you received any new sign permits since we passed the regulation?
I have told a lot of people about them. I have received 0 calls, and no one's come in about it.
Okay.
So we haven't had anybody, but like I said, I think it was last week that we sent it out to the chamber, so hopefully
Yeah.
she'll send it to the members.
Do you have copies of the regulation that you give to people when you're going out and inspecting?
Yeah, so what I did is I came up with a very easy-to-read, quick, short
That's what,
process of this is what we need, this is what you need to do, this is what we recommend you include, and then I have the regulations, and at the bottom, we developed an application form that will have all the information so that if they do a renewal, we'll already have it. It'll just be, so that's all together. It's on the website already. We're trying to get it out everywhere so that they're getting the right information, because we don't want them to rely on the old, 25 days, I need so we're working on the education, but yeah, we're trying to get it out there
very
to everybody.
good. That's what we're trying to accomplish. Very good. Good.
I just have a quick question for
Yes. Yep.
to Mike. Do you have to put this in the newspaper? I'm just asking a question. I mean, like under a legal ad? I don't know, I'm asking.
You guys would
Because
have,
it does
yeah,
carry
you guys would
fine
have
with it.
published it when you made this.
The regulation.
When you codified the regulation,
Right,
but
we didn't publish the whole language, we just published a notice that the temp sign regulation has been changed.
Okay, that's all I was curious about. Thank you.
It's on the town planner website for anyone that wants to read it.
Any other commissioner remarks? Any questions for the zoning enforcement officer? Mike, you're doing a good job because under the circumstances we're working with.
Yeah,
we're
We know
trying.
it's a tough, it's a long time coming with these temporary sign regulations. We finally got them approved, and now it's going to be the enforcement that gets us to the finish line. So it's basically up to you. Any other commissioner remarks?
I just wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, I think he's picked up quite a few new violations, and looks like you got it under control. Great job.
appreciate that.
Okay, we're all set. We'll go into, no other questions for the zoning enforcement officer. We'll go into public hearings. Have the vice chairman read the rules and regulations we follow for public hearing.
Procedures for a public hearing. The order of proceedings at public hearings shall be as follows. A, convening by the chairman. B, reading of the notice by the commission secretary or commissioner designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, a statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by the applicant limited to 20 minutes or unless a specific extension is granted by the chair. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by the applicant limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by the opposition limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitations should be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance. In no case shall an extension be for more than 20% of the allotment indicated above, or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
Can you please read petition 3217?
Petition 32-17, special permit, section 3.2.1, church at 2434 Berlin Turnpike, Trans Berlin Corporation, owner Mark Schubert, 35 Terrace Road, Weathersfield, Connecticut, applicant contact.
This is a continuation of a hearing that we had two weeks ago, and I'll turn it over to the town planner. There was some question as to a letter that was sent to us from the property owner in regard to parking, and the planner has a report on that.
Right. The hearing was kept open to give the staff time to evaluate some last-minute information that came in at the public hearing. So I'll just read the significant paragraph from my report. Whenever a prospective tenant comes to TPC for approval of a special permit, it's been the staff's, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say special permit, just any permit, but anyway. So it's been the staff's practice to use the number of parking spaces required for the previous tenant as the basis for how much parking is available to the prospective tenant. In this case, the previous tenant was retail, and the unit is 3,029 square feet. So at 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet, which is the retail parking formula, there are 15 parking spaces available to the church. The, quote, place of assembly, end quote, parking formula requires 1 parking space for every 2 attendees. So 15 spaces will provide enough parking for 30 attendees. According to their application, only 16 people typically attend services, so there's more than enough parking for this activity. If the congregation grows significantly, this will be a problem, but the applicants are aware of that. The fact that the property owner restriped the parking lot without checking with the staff first is a separate issue, and we will discuss that with him, with the property owner.
Okay, is there, you can come to the front, the applicant can come to, because it is a continuation of the public hearing. If you would like to add anything to your previous,
So Mark Shaver, 35 Terrace Road, Weathersfield, Connecticut. So I don't have anything more to add, I think, other than just to say is that we currently, with the membership out of the 16 that was mentioned, we're only using 2 to 3 parking spaces the way it is. So we feel like to be able to meet that requirement, we're well in line.
okay. Any commissioner remarks at this time? Any questions? Another thing that they have going for them is that the hours of operation are off hours. It's on Sunday. They have Sunday services and I believe a Wednesday night operation going on there. So those are usually periods that there's plenty of parking. I did a site visit there during the day, which I thought was one of the busier times that I went. I went a couple of times, and there's more than enough parking for the tenants that are there. And then having it on a Sunday they're going to pretty much be there by themselves. So that will help in the parking. And the property owner also gave us the assurances that if the congregation got to the point where they were busting at the seams, that they'd have to come up with a different arrangement. So at this point, I'll open it up to the public, and then we'll make a closing of the hearing. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor of this application, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone in opposition to this application? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the commission? I would recommend that you move this to old business and act on it tonight.
Make a motion to close and move it to old business and act on it tonight. Second.
Motion made and second. Any comments from the commissioners? It seems like they've met all the requirements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do you have a motion?
Yeah, a draft.
Something?
Yes, there's a draft motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Mr. Vice Chairman, please read petition 3317.
Petition 33-17, zone change R12 to BBT at 2391 Berlin Turnpike, 2391 Berlin Turnpike LLC, owner applicant John Fermato, 17 Farmington Avenue, Plainville, Connecticut, contact.
Okay, this is another continuation of a public hearing that we had. The applicant is here, so we'll let him proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission staff. For the record, my name is Alan Bongiovanni. I'm a licensed land surveyor of the state of Connecticut with a business at 170 Payne Road. We made a presentation last year regarding our request for zone change from the strip of land that's in the R12 zone to the BT zone. I believe our presentation was complete. You had chose to leave this open because we had an accompanying site plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure that there's anything I need to add or have to add at this time.
Anika, you see the two plans in front of you. We're looking right now, we're looking at the zone change, right?
Right.
Can we talk about the site plans in conjunction, or do we have to wait until that's under?
I would recommend you wait until we get to that item on the agenda.
Okay. Are there any questions as to the zone change, what parcel they're talking about for the change from R12 to the business zone? Any questions? Okay, seeing none. We'll open it up to the public. I don't have any other questions on the zone change matter. Open up to the public. Anyone with the public wishing to speak in favor of this application, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone in opposition? Okay, seeing none. How do you want to proceed, Mr. Vice Chairman?
I'll close this petition. I'll make a motion that we close petition 33-17.
Want to move it to? The motion made and second. Are we going to move it to which meeting? The following meeting?
I just figured the following meeting, yeah. Unless whatever you want.
No, we have to get through the site plan. I mean,
Yeah.
it would be better if we ran these in conjunction because the site plan has bearing on the zone change. So we'll, any questions from the commission? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's it for public hearing portions. There's other items on the agenda. This item is coming back under new business as the next item that we're taking up. We'll have,
The minutes?
yeah, we've got the approval of the minutes of September 13th. You have them in your packet.
Make a motion to approve.
Vice Chairman,
Yeah, I have a correction.
go ahead.
Page 18. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 spots up. It says, under myself, it says the sign is 6 foot by 6 foot, which is 360 square feet. I believe I had said 6 foot by 60 foot.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay, so make that change to the minutes. We have a motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that we made that change. New business, read 3317, please.
Petition 30-17, site plan approval at 262 Brockett Street, 2391 Berlin Turnpike LLC, owner John Formato, owner applicant John Formato, 17 Farmington Avenue, Plainville, Connecticut, contact.
Good
Okay.
evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. For the record, Alan Bongiovanni, 170 Payne Road, Newington. I submitted a couple plans to the planner. I think he's passed out reduced copies, and then I'd like to also have on the screen the latest drawing put up there so you guys can compare. What we did was we took the feedback we got from the commission last month, or last meeting 2 weeks ago, and we made some adjustments to the plan. So as I think the chairman said, a little horse trading going to be required to get this approved because we have some nonconformities. I think we've put forth a good faith effort that addresses many of your comments and I think helps satisfy Mr. Formato in his proposed development. Craig, could you change that to, this is, well, let me start. This is what I submitted with the initial application, what we presented at the last meeting. The area of concern in this topic, or this conversation, is the front building, 2391 Berlin Turnpike, that's at the lower right-hand corner. There were a lot of a lot of comments about the amount of green space in front of the building, which is existing pavement and parking. The the second curb cut right behind the building, that exists somewhat, not like I proposed it, but there is a curb cut in the parking area there. Since we got so many comments from the commissioners regarding curb cuts, green space, and the nonconformities, we've made the following changes, and if I could have Craig, the other. What I've done is I've highlighted the darker area in the lower right. That's the area of change. And if you notice, and you should all have this reduced copy in front of you, we've taken some of the paved area out from the front of the building. We've taken a good portion of the paved area in this corner here out of the site plan and proposed it to be green space, so we've enlarged that. We've left this front parking as is and the main curb cut on the Berlin Turnpike, but we've reduced the entire throat here, making it, one, more green, and two, a safer intersection. We've eliminated this curb cut in its entirety. We've combined this parking field that is intended to service just this building from the main parking field for 282 Brockett Street, so that you have its own area for its employees and customers, and that there's not so much cross-traffic between the two uses. We haven't had the time or the opportunity to really go over this with the planner. We believe it meets all the green space requirements interior to the parking as well as the overall site plan. One of the things that we also did was there was a projection in this corner of the building which we were able to remove. It didn't make architectural sense, so in that respect, the projection that was over the building line in that area, we removed, so we've reduced that amount of nonconformity. The other issue where there's a big reduction in the nonconformity is this is a two-story building today. Our proposal is to take the roof off, the gable roof, and turn it into a one-story structure. So we're going to remove a significant amount of square footage from those areas that extend over the building lines. With that, I'd like to introduce Dante Baffi. He's the project architect, to tell you about the architecture of the building, what the intended look and feel of the building is, and with that, please, Dante.
Good evening. My name's Dante Baffi, Dante J. Baffi Design LLC, 108 Main Street, Collinsville, Connecticut. I too had given a new drawing on the
That's
thumb
one
drive.
on this
Yep.
one? Okay.
I think it's under a file called Proposed.
Yeah, let me see if I have another.
As Alan alluded to before they put it up there, the existing building, kind of goes along with the zone change here. It's basically a gable, sloped, architectural, asphalt shingled house. We're taking the sloped roofs off.
Take mine out, Craig.
Hang on.
Yeah, I'll pop out the other
Let
one.
him put the thing in so we
Yep.
can see the drawing while you're talking, the architect.
Well, okay. I don't know why it won't let me, I'll just take it out anyway. Yep. Okay. Don't blow up on me, computer.
right, yeah, forgive the color, the scan didn't capture it quite accurately. I do have a poster board here if you need clarification. But back to basically the reshaping of this two-story house. The footprint that you saw on Alan's map, the front portion, the lighter shaded area, that's the existing footprint that we did shave some of the non-conforming corner off of. That house is basically being stripped of the siding, down to the existing wood studs. The gable roof is being taken off. There's stair towers, there's a second floor. All of that's being removed. We are going to leave the structure more of a 1.5-story structure, much like the Sculptures Plaza. The scale of the building right on the Berlin Turnpike really does call for a structure with some presence. It will all be one accessible floor. You see that on the Turnpike elevation, there is no doors. The parking that comes up to it, as Alan had alluded to, we have a much safer corner with a door around the side with walkways that connect the front parking to the back parking. Moving around the building, what I've deemed the Sculptures elevation, that's the quote-unquote main entry to the bulk of the parking on the backside, where the accessible parking is and where the joined lot to the Brockett Street elevation. The addition, which is on Alan's drawing as the darker shaded element, is conforming. It does not creep past the limit lines. And as you can see, as it steps back into the site, it incrementally also steps down in size. So it keeps its presence on Berlin Turnpike as a larger entity. And as it steps down in size towards the parking, becomes a very manageable, pedestrian-friendly addition. The overall footprint is under 2,500 square feet. I think it's 23 and change, and does have the ability to enter from the parking side and the side door. The Brockett Street building, which Sculptures is the main tenant, that addition is conforming to what's there now. Both are EFIS buildings. That building has been kept quite nicely maintained. The black pre-finished aluminum storefront systems, gooseneck lighting, and crown and trim moldings will be seen on both buildings. The building out by the street will be done in a stone EFIS color. We're going to bring some of the cream, beiges, and taupes from the back building in on a skirt and apron of stone around the base of the Berlin Turnpike building. So I think what was a sort of out-of-place looking house on the Berlin Turnpike is now a clean, refined building, more conforming than it was, and I think would make a nice addition to the Berlin Turnpike streetscape.
Any questions from the commissioners for the architect on what he's presented?
There's an area where you said you're gonna take off the corner of the building, because it's going into the, building line. Is there a foundation under that corner? Are you gonna remove the foundation and put a new foundation in?
The foundation would be removed, and it would be put within the building line, yes.
Any other questions?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
clarify one, the square footage is actually about 1,700 square feet, not the 2,300, as the parking table states.
Any, Mike, any questions? Stanley?
Looks great.
Not about the building, no.
Michael?
Nothing really.
Stanley, I'd like to ask you a question. Could you comment on, you see this plan that he's presented with the revised opening here, where he's,
I have some concerns with that. It's really close to the intersection.
why don't you talk about that? I can see that you're,
Is there any way,
go ahead.
is there any way that you could take and nose this down a little bit here and put this driveway so it's one way out, angling it down this way? 'Cause you're gonna have somebody coming out of here trying to make a left turn, they're gonna get T-boned. You know, I'm not saying it's ever happened.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Right.
I can offer you that it's been there probably for 100 years or 50 years. We could do that. I don't think the applicant would have a problem trying to make it into a right turn only.
Right,
I'm gonna
with
tell you,
signage.
If they're hell-bent on making the left turn and going on the pike, they're gonna do it.
You're not gonna stop them, but I mean, all I'm concerned with here is because you've got a 50-mile-an-hour zone coming down here, even though if you're slowing down to make that turn, you know, somebody coming out and hanging up in there, that's what I'm concerned with. So if you could probably like teardrop the island this way, you know, and then make it so it's right out only, that would be a safety issue that I would definitely,
We'd be happy to do that. We'd have to work with the state because now we're gonna be in the state right away.
right.
But subject to their approvals, I wouldn't have an issue doing that.
That's
I was
my
more
only,
concerned with, I know it's existing condition, but you're coming into an intersection on an angle like that, so you
what do you mean?
be coming out, the people that are exiting would have to exit through here. They couldn't exit through this portion, the top portion, the top, curb cut. You'd
They'd be
have to
coming
exit
in
from-
this way, to get into this way here, you'd do that, back out, and then you'd have a continuous right turn out onto Brockett
From the corner.
from here, but you'd take the island and move it a little bit more this way, so that the exit would be closer to where the tree is, say. Put like a teardrop island in there.
I understand, but with the way that the parking is angled on this plan, you can't basically go out the top curb cut.
No, you can't,
You
correct.
can only come out of the bottom
Right.
curb cut. And you're coming into an intersection on an angle where people are coming into Brockett Street off of the turnpike.
Right. I'm just concerned with somebody trying to pull straight out and then taking a left and trying to get onto the Berlin Turnpike. That would be my thought.
Go ahead.
One thing, when you take that right, now you're blind on your left. If you're able to go out on the turnpike, you can use your side view mirror, which you're supposed to use, and you can see the cars coming. But if you're only taking a right, when you start to turn, now you can't see who's coming around the corner at you. I think you leave it just the way it is.
Okay. Alan, let's get to the crux of the issue here. We have, and I'm going to be very frank with you, we have other applications that are coming in with similar situations where we have non-conforming uses or people that are coming in to redevelop parcels along the Berlin Turnpike. And one of the things that we're trying to accomplish as a commission is to regain the green space in front of these things. You know that, because the last application you brought in for Dr. Patel, you were required to give us the 35-foot frontage, the setback of the 35 green space. If this was the only situation on the Berlin Turnpike, I would try to work as hard as I could to make this work. But if we grant you the ability to not put in the 35-foot green space and come more into compliance with the current regulations, because it's a nonconformity at this point, then we're opening ourselves up for the next three or four people that are coming in with the same situation that we're trying to get to give us back our boulevard look on the Berlin Turnpike. If this was the only situation and the only piece that was like this, I think we could work it out. But what I'm doing not here is setting a precedent for the rest of the pieces that are coming in. We have one that's knocking at the door to come in with the same situation. Might even, yours is worse than theirs.
I understand what you're saying, and I've.
So how do I work with you to approve this with the parking in front without the green space, and then a month from now or 2 months from now have someone come in with the same situation and say no to them? So we're basically saying, we're basically waiving our 35-foot frontage without saying that it's a waiver.
Well, what you have here is it's an existing situation. It's an existing.
Well, all of the
non-conforming.
situations on the Berlin Turnpike are existing.
We do have several. You're not waiving anything to leave this here. If the owners.
But you know that our mission is to, when these nonconformities come in, is to bring them as close as we can to conformity as humanly possible. And this doesn't do it.
The, one of the things we worked with very diligently with the owner was how to best redevelop this front parcel of land. They have a certain requirement, or at least the current tenant has a certain requirement of square footage, so this is how we could best accommodate that. You have an existing situation there with about 1,700 square feet of space, maybe it's even a little bit more. It's old, it's dilapidated, needs a lot of TLC and renovation.
Hang on, let her change the tape, I want to get all of this.
As this has become a smaller part of a larger parcel, the applicant, and you know how the applicant developed and maintains his property, was hoping to be able to accommodate this style of development. I think if we're not allowed to keep the front parking the way it is in redeveloping the front portion of the site, I think it might just have to sit there for the time being until he can find a tenant that can accept a smaller footprint. You know, I don't think the idea is gonna be to develop this into a, or, you know, let's say the suggestion is, or the requirement is, you gotta build within the building lines, and that's all there is to it. Well, that small of a building, I don't think you're gonna see Mr. Fermano say, I'm gonna build
This
today.
closed off.
I think you're gonna say, well, I'm gonna
Bring it through.
leave it the way it is today until such time as I can find a new photo hut kiosk or something to fit on that property.
Over here.
I mean, it is a balancing act. He's got a piece of property there that he wants to improve the entire piece, not just the back piece, not
You just hit on something that, the entire piece, so you're combining this into one piece of property, which is making the total piece of property non-conforming at this point. If we proceed without trying to get this closer to conformity, we're making the whole piece a non-conforming piece, because you have the back portion, the portion that we're contemplating a change from R12 to a business zone, in the front portion. That's gonna be one piece of property.
Can I interject here too?
Sure, go ahead.
From an aesthetic point of view, I know you mentioned part of trying to get these non-conforming front lots back to what you want at the 30 feet of green space to give that cohesive boulevard look. I would argue that what we're doing to the building is much more of a visual impact than a strip of grass. That building right now is in a state of disrepair. The owner wants to improve it, but to improve it, you have to make it so it'll take a viable tenant. And as it sits there right now, there's no viable tenants in its condition. And to put money, time, and energies into this building, to leave some parking by the street, but update and make as conforming as possible the existing building that's there. The addition we're putting on is totally conforming. The additional parking in the back is. I think that when you're weighing what's being done to it to what you're actually allowing to stay non-conforming, the positives outweigh the negatives. But, you know, I understand the point of wanting this to look cohesive, but Berlin Turnpike is.
It goes more than that, because we set a precedence here that'll affect the next 3 or 4 people that come in.
And I hate to argue with you, but this is not a precedence. Dairy Queen's a precedence. Dairy Queen wouldn't exist today if you had to have any green space. There's several properties that would never exist today. The state of Connecticut, in their wisdom, will not take away non-conforming parking in the front of the lots, because they understand that these businesses are established and it's existing. And it's a necessary evil for these buildings and properties to survive. If you want to take all the green space out of these properties, then I suggest you come up with a method of paying them for the taking of their property. They have an existing use.
Yes, and they can continue that existing use as long as they don't try to add on to the building or make major changes, because we cannot increase a nonconformity.
And that's the point we're making. We're not increasing the nonconformity, we're decreasing the nonconformity. We're adding green space, we're reducing the square footage, that's nonconformity.
You know that this board made McDonald's change the entire layout of that building so that we could get the 35-foot green space in the front of McDonald's. They changed the entire building around, okay? There was massive nonconformities there, but we got the green space there. There's so many properties coming up on, down the road from now. If we give in on the green space here, we're gonna have a problem with all the other properties down the road. And when you think about all the work you're gonna do, you're gonna take the foundation off the corner, you're gonna take the roof off, you're gonna put a flat roof, and all this other work that you're gonna do, it would be cheaper to knock the building down, move the building towards the side, eliminate the parking spaces, get your green space, and build. But to be honest with you, the two additions that you want to put on, by the time you add the parking for those, and what about the problem that he has with the parking on his existing business? Are you going to even have enough parking spaces?
Mr. Formato believes he will. It well exceeds the requirements of your zoning requirements.
But just like we checked the church parking lot on Transatlantic property to make sure that it wasn't going to overflow, a hairdressing salon takes up a lot more than what the regulations say. So how do we handle that?
That's a question for you. You wrote your regulations.
But we know that there's an existing problem here because he uses 30, 40 parking spaces next door. So we know that he uses that. Are we going to count that he's going to get an agreement still for the overflow parking? Is that going to be in writing? There's a lot of things besides the green space that I would have a concern with. And I agree with my fellow commissioner that exiting out in the front here, that's a big safety problem. I'd like to see something cleaned up on here.
Really quite 10 cars, 8 to 10 cars next door over there, and that all this would give us the extra parking. That was part of the reason why we're trying to redevelop the whole thing.
Should have him come to the table, Ellen, to get him on the record.
Yes, my name is John Formato, from 17 Farmington, Plainville. I just want to state that we don't put 30 to 40 cars at the Mexican restaurant. We put 8 to 10, and he probably put 6 on ours. So at the end of the day, it's probably a 2 to 4 parking net. It started off where we needed the parking over there, but once everything leveled off, the way we schedule our clients, it's not 30 or 40 parking over there. What we're trying to do here is get more parking for the whole corner. And as far as the front property goes, it would be a Botox business where there's only one doctor and maybe 2 clients at a time. We have one in our Southington location. If you wanted to take a ride down there and look at it, it's set up for just 3 cars. The rest of the existing parking would be for get my employees back in my parking lot, and then the Mexican restaurant people go back in their parking lot, because it's kind of a 4 cars there, 3 cars here. And the other building that would be added on would be hopefully a tuxedo place that's in town. I can't really say the name. They don't really take up a lot of parking, and part of that would be storage for my salon. Well, yeah, half of that would be extra storage for my salon because I made the mistake of not putting a basement in, and I have no storage. So we're trying to make the whole property work, with parking, make the corner nice. I mean, it's a really hard to make everything work financially, tenant-wise, the whole 9 yards. I understand where you guys are coming from. We've worked on 4 or 5, 6 different projects to try to make this work, and because of that corner, it is tough. I understand that. If the house stays the way it is, it's gonna still be there. You're still gonna have the corner the same, you'll have the extra parking. The house maybe get fixed up a little, put some new windows in, but we're still gonna have a tenant there, no matter what happens. I mean, to knock the building down and start from scratch, it just, it doesn't seem to work for this layout, because it's gonna lose a lot of the parking and take a lot of parking away. And then we'll have the same problem as we did in the original plan where there's not enough parking. If I had the money to knock the whole thing down and make it a parking lot, I would, but, I'm a small businessman, and it's gotta work financially with square footage and rent and all that. So I just wanted to state that there's not 30, 40 cars over there. It's 6 to 8 there, and then now he's parking 6 to 8 there, and, they're parking on the grass, on the mud. The whole kind of corner is kind of a mess, and we're just really trying to fix it up. That's it.
Any other commissioner comments? Any other commissioners see have a different opinion as to the green space in front? Do you feel like we could allow this to go forward without getting our green to 35 foot? Or are you gonna be able to, when the next application comes in, are you gonna be able to work on that in the same manner that you're working on this, Bobby?
First of all, let me say this. I've missed the last few meetings, but I have been reading the minutes. I have been keeping up on what's been going on, so I do feel I can comment on this. I think the idea of a new building, the aesthetics, the way it's going to look, I think it will look great there. However, we are setting what I feel is a bad precedence. We got to get that green space back. I have to agree with the chairman and the vice chairman. I don't know where to go from here, where there's a happy medium, how we do this. But as you said, with other projects coming down the road, looking at us, it's going to put us in a real tough spot as a commission.
How much green, in the interior, how much green space? You got more than 10%?
Our new calculations,
Can you squeeze any more parking in the back here if we eliminated the parking in the front?
I really can't. I mean, with the setbacks and everything else, there's really nowhere else to put them. In the back, we've got our transformer where I couldn't extend further back along with the proposed addition. I'm talking about for the rear building. And we're shoehorning in where we can make this thing fit.
Is the LED costing a lot of, is that taking up a lot of room too? Can we, is there something that we can do on the LED to make it a more economical, and so that you can get the 35 foot, knowing that you also pick up parking spaces with the LED, plus, if I'm not mistaken, that LED is getting to be where it's sometimes, maybe you could correct me, is it 2-3 times more expensive on a project sometimes now because of this LED?
The amount of effort that the engineers have to put forth just to satisfy the requirements is
Yep.
really expensive.
Right. You know,
We
is
got
it-
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces. You have from the property line to the building, you got 30 feet. This would not be a waiver if you came in and showed green space there and then got more parking in the back.
Let me work with the applicant. Let me,
Alan, we're in a situation, we got a situation where we got people knocking on the door to come in. And it's exactly or not as bad as this situation, but we want the and it's in an area of the Berlin Turnpike that we're trying to get, because there's contiguous pieces to this one that are gonna be coming in also, that if we don't get it, we don't ever get another bite at the apple. You know how this works. We get one shot at it. And when you bring up the Dairy Queen, if the Dairy Queen came in and wanted to do anything with that piece of property, they wouldn't be able to do anything, because we want them to conform. And they'd have to put a park there or something. I don't know what, but, that's a whole different situation.
if, we will endeavor to reallocate some of the green space.
And if you even talked about the addition, putting more of the addition onto the other building than in the front, maybe you could pick up park, I don't know. You have to look at,
Where's the drainage go now, Alan? Is
It's in
that,
the ground. This
just
is
goes-
the only gravel bank in the whole town.
Okay.
It's perfect for LED and that.
so you're not draining anywhere but straight into the
Goes
ground?
into the ground.
Okay.
And the only reason we have this big rain garden is pre-treatment of the
Right.
stormwater,
So,
which,
so you could almost, if you didn't have that and you were, you could almost pick up four or 5 spaces possibly in there if that was eliminated, and still could take care of your drainage. And
the way the parking is now, is there any excess or just exactly what the?
no, we've put excess in there because we know, Mr.
No, but I'm
Formaldi,
saying to meet the regulations, what does the regulation say for the square footage that you got?
for the entire project,
Yeah,
I need 50 spaces. I'm proposing 65.
So if you pick up
So if
five
you- If
spaces.
you eliminated the 7 parking places, you'd still be within the regulations.
Yes.
Okay, but you're not comfortable with that because you need the extra parking.
Yep.
So is there any way that we could use,
Some of those front islands on Brockett Street, we
You-
could probably
yeah.
reduce
Even,
the size of those.
even the interior space, if you didn't, I mean, if you could pick up a couple spaces interior and you were shy of the 10% on the interior, I don't know about my fellow commissioners, but I would feel more comfortable not having a 10%
Well, you'd be-
there,
you'd be
but have the
adding-
35 in the
you'd be
front.
you'd be adding the square footage in green space in the front. So you wouldn't be being
no.
detrimental to the 10% green space.
Right.
We have a direction, Mr. Chairman, thank you. We will, go back to the drawing
You gotta
board.
try to make it work, Alan, because we're wrestling with this. We want to make this work. We want to see this project go forward. But I can't tie the hands of this commission on 3 or 4 other sites that come in and then try to explain to the people, well, the first they're gonna say was you gave it to Alan when he came in. He talked you into giving it to him. And now, so we want the same thing you gave, the structures piece. Give me the 30 feet in the front.
We got some homework to do.
Okay. We want to make it work. We want to see him succeed. We want this to be a beautiful piece of property. It's on a real key location.
Well, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman,
Yeah.
if there's anything else that would be helpful, if you pass it on to the planner so he could pass it on to us, we want to be helpful.
I'll definitely get something on paper to run by the planner so we can start,
Even if you eliminated that island in the middle there, in the middle of the parking lot, I don't know if that, you could pick up something, a couple of spaces there.
there's some options I think we can,
And then you look at that rain garden thing. I'd rather be lenient on the LID to get the green space in the front.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
We'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you. We already covered item B under new business, with the Wetlands Commission, and that would be put on the agenda for, and then we have,
If I could, Mr. Chairman,
yes,
you have us on there for 395 Willard Avenue. We are not prepared to make a presentation at this time, so if you could just table us and not waste your time,
okay.
we'll be back. at
That's the
next
one
meeting.
that you put on for D?
Yep,
Okay, that's fine.
thank you. Have a good night.
We understand what they're trying to do there, and it's not a major change, Alan, in my opinion, but we have to hear it and go through the procedure.
Thank you.
If you're you're not having LED problems over there too, are you?
It was already designed with a drainage system that really meets the requirements. The only reason I believe we have to go back to the Wetlands Commission is because some of the construction details, because of the LID have changed. So yeah, it's kind of a headache, but.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're under C, under new business, temporary health care structures. I'll turn it over to the town planner.
Okay, this was a Public Act 17-155 that was passed by the legislature this past session. Basically, what it does is it gives property owners everywhere in Connecticut, as of right, permission to build temporary health care structures or granny pods, they're also called. These are basically little mobile homes that cannot be more than 500 square feet, that the homeowner can bring onto the property for an impaired family member, and the town basically has to allow it as long as it meets the requirements that the legislature put into the act. a lot of those requirements are pretty onerous. So I think what a lot of towns, but the legislators also wrote into the bill to give towns the opportunity to opt out, as they're calling it. So if a town doesn't want its residents to be able to do this, the town can go through a process to opt out so that people wouldn't be able to do it. And that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. A lot of towns don't like it, but have chosen not to go through the opt-out process because they felt that the requirements are so onerous that no one's going to apply anyway. For example, the structure has to be assembled at a location other than at the installation site. The structure must be occupied by a mentally or physically impaired person. The structure must be 500 square feet or less. It cannot be on a foundation. It must comply with state building code, fire code, and public health code. And the structure has to be removed within 120 days after the impaired person no longer lives there. The bill goes on to say that towns could impose additional requirements, such as the structure must be accessible to emergency vehicles. The structure must have city water and sewer, that's kind of obvious, but the town shall have the right to inspect the structure at reasonable times. And then this big one, which I think is probably going to deter a lot of people, the applicant must post a $50,000 bond to ensure compliance with item 6 above, which is the requirement that the building be removed 120 days after the person no longer lives there. And finally, the town can pass a rule that says that the town will have the right to revoke the permit if the permittee violates any of the law's requirements. So again, my non-professional, just my personal opinion is I don't think too many, if anybody, is going to actually take advantage of this if Newington does adopt these additional requirements. But the town can opt out, and if the Planning and Zoning Commission wants to opt out from the process,
Who
they
actually
can
does
certainly
the
do that.
opting out? Is it the town planning and zoning
starts here.
commission?
It starts
and
here.
then it goes to the council, and they're actually the ones
Correct.
that opt out of the program.
Right.
Is there a time limit once it goes, after the public hearing here and then it goes to the counselor, do they have to act on it within a certain time period?
That's a good question. This is uncharted water. I don't think there's ever been anything like this where it was a two-step process. I can find out. I don't think so, but I'll find out.
Yeah, I want to make sure we don't miss any timelines or anything like that if we choose to go that path.
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure the town can choose to opt out at any time. I thought you meant, must there be a certain amount of time between when P and Z votes opt out and the town council? I thought you meant a gap between those two things.
If we have a public hearing and if it gets approved and it goes up to the council, do they have
to opt out?
To opt out.
Right.
Do they have so many days to act on it? And I just want to make sure that we follow all the.
Right. They don't, but in the meantime, somebody could slip in and build one of these temporary health structures while the town is in the process of, and then that building would be grandfathered for however long the person lives there. Yes, that is a possibility that somebody could slip in while you're deliberating on this.
Have you talked to any other towns that are thinking about doing the same thing?
Yes,
Like
there are.
Ridgefield, and there's a couple others.
I am in touch with the planners in those towns. I don't have a list in my mind of who they are, but it seems to be all over the place, different kinds of towns, rich towns and poor towns, rural towns and urban towns. It's just
Mr.
towns that decided they don't like it.
Doesn't it also need to have its own sanitary and water supply and?
Well, like I said, if Newington wants to.
No, I'm
Newington-
just asking a question. That's what it is.
Oh, you mean as a practical matter?
Yes, it's a practical matter, because you'd have to run in a sanitary line with a new connection, water lines with new
Both,
connections.
you'd have to have both of them. They can't tie into the existing house. It has to be a
That's
separate
what
line
I don't
from
remember
the
him saying.
street
I don't remember.
to this structure.
I don't remember the
Has to have
planner saying that.
separate
I just
utilities.
want to make sure that was clear.
Well,
Thank you.
Well, if in more rural towns where lots of houses are on private septic and wells, I think this rule was written so that if a rural town where, absent a rule, the homeowner could just drill or dig a well and a new septic for this structure, they'd be able to do that. But Granby could pass a rule that says, nope, even though you've got plenty of room for a septic and a well, we're going to make you hook up the city water and sewer if Granby wanted to. I think that's what this
Our
additional requirement
regulations
is.
call for if there's public water and public sewer in the vicinity or in front of the property, you have to hook up.
Right,
You can't
that's-
put
I just wanna make sure that was on
a
record.
septic system or you could have a private well, I believe, but there's restrictions on that also. So you couldn't, from the practical matter is that most of the water and sewer come into the main house from the street into the front of the house. This would be a structure that's in the rear of the house. So you'd have to, if to tie into the existing or the main house utilities, you'd have to run it almost all the way to the street anyway. So practically, I think the regulations would call for them to tie into a new lateral and a new tap into the water system.
That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
I don't think we're going to get that far with this.
One of the other things that was brought up was mobile trailers. They put those in the backyards, they're self-contained, and they want to do the same thing with those in other parts of the state too.
We have
in regards to
regulations
this-
I don't
Right,
believe that
but-
trailer parks
They're not
are
allowed,
allowed
but
in the
under
town of
this, they
Newington.
said if they were rented to a disabled person, it falls under this. So you have to look at that also.
We have someone asked for a legal opinion on this. We got an opinion that unfortunately was not in writing, but we have an opinion from, or was it in writing?
Well, I think the town attorney expressed the opinion that this might not be legal, but I don't think that was his professional opinion. That was, I think, just a kind of a comment.
Chairman?
Yes.
I think that we should opt out on this. That's my feeling. I wouldn't want to take a chance that maybe get a couple of these in here. I think that it would be overburdening on the staff with all the requirements and everything, and I just don't think that it's something that a lot of people would do. We also have regulations for, and our regulations that allow care in the home for elderly, so for in-law apartment or something like that. So we have a mechanism that does help some people. So that would be my feeling.
Okay, I would like to have the planner make sure that if we go forward with the public hearing, we need some information as to, I don't want to go through this and have the public hearing, send it to the council, and the council doesn't act in a timely manner, and we get into a time frame with it. I know that we can do our business here at the Town Plan and Zoning Commission on a timely manner, but I don't know if sometimes the council gets bogged down into subcommittees and sending it to a committee or something. So I want to make sure that we meet the time periods, and I think that's what Commissioner Payne was alluding to, that we want to make sure that we don't get into a problem where we get it forced on us because we didn't do the procedure right. So I would be looking for a motion and I'm getting the feeling that you want to put this on. So can we put this on for a public hearing?
Mm-hmm.
So schedule it for the next, you schedule it when you think we got to schedule it for, with the load that we have coming up. The sooner the better, so that we don't get into a situation where someone comes in and applies, but I don't see that happening. Okay, any other questions? We good with that? So we'll have a public hearing, and I think the feeling is that we go through the motions and we opt out of opt out. Okay. Next item is we took the Willard Avenue thing off because of what Alan wasn't ready to bring it forward. We're going to old business. Please read 3117, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Petition 31-17, special permit, section 3.2.1, church residence at 800 North Mountain Road, St. Thomas Indian Orthodox Church, owner applicant Reverend Father Abram Phillip, 800 North Mountain Road, Newington, Connecticut. Contact.
Is there a motion proposed? There's a motion proposed. Would you read the motion, please? Yeah.
Petition 31-17, special permit, section 3.2.1. Church resident at 800 North Mountain Road, St. Thomas Indian Orthodox Church, applicant, owner, Reverend Father Abraham Phillip, 800 North Mountain Road, Newington, Connecticut, contact. I move to approve petition 31-17, special permit, section 3.2.1, church resident at 800 North Mountain Road, St. Thomas Indian Orthodox Church, applicant owner, Reverend Father Abraham Phillip, 800 North Mountain Road, Newington, Connecticut, contact. Findings. 1. The applicant's address the special criteria of section 5.2.6 to the town plan and zoning commission satisfaction. Conditions none.
Second. Motion made and second. Any questions or any comments? This is a pretty straightforward. This is an allowed use in that zone. They met all the criteria of the regulations. We have a motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you're all set. You have an approval. You're welcome. Okay, we're into petition. Is there any other old business? Anything else that we're supposed to act on?
Bond release?
The bond,
Well,
okay,
we'll
that
get
comes under
town
someplace
planner.
else.
But yes, the church, 3217. You closed the hearing and moved that to old business, and there is a motion, a draft
Okay,
motion.
yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
3217.
You have a motion on that. You want to read that one too, Mike?
I don't have it.
Here.
Thank you. Petition 33-17.
Oh, wait a
No,
minute.
no, 32.
That's not it.
It should have been on the table when you came in,
Not in the packet?
No, I didn't have
maybe
it.
in the package.
That's in the packet, isn't
Okay, it
it?
was in the package.
Yeah. No.
Take your time. It's in there somewhere.
Got it.
Okay, go ahead.
32-17, special permit, section 3.2.1, church at 2434 Berlin Turnpike. Trans Berlin Corporation owner, Mark Schabert, 35 Terrace Road, Weathersfield, Connecticut, applicant contact. I move to approve petition 32-17, special permit, section 3.2.1, church at 2434 Berlin Turnpike. Trans Berlin Corporation owner, Mark Schabert, 35 Terrace Road, Weathersfield, Connecticut, applicant contact. Findings. The applicant has addressed the special criteria in section 5.2.6 to the town plan and zoning commission's satisfaction. Conditions none.
There's a motion made and second. Any comments from the commissioners? Just for the record, I think that they meet the question, only question was parking, and they met that requirement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that one is approved also. They'll probably be calling you tomorrow, Mr. Planner. Okay, next, so that ends the old business, right? Yes. Okay, petitions for public hearing, we have scheduling. You want to read that one, Dominic? 3417.
Yep, petition 34-17, special permit, section 3.4.4, home occupation at 172 Indian Hill Road, Amy Berber, 172 Indian Hill Road, Newington, Connecticut, owner applicant contact.
Okay,
Go ahead,
yeah,
Mr. Planner.
right, all right. This is an application for a home occupation, for a home business. I know some commissioners might be concerned about the idea of approving a kennel in a home, but it's on the agenda for your consideration because it meets the minimal requirements of that regulation, which doesn't mean that it has to be approved, because there are a lot of subjective criteria that the commissioners consider before they approve any special permit. So the applicant will have to convince you that number one, she can do this in a safe and clean manner. Number two, that the neighbors don't object to it, because it'll be a public hearing, they'll come and speak. I think if the commission is satisfied with what she tells you and you're inclined to approve it, but you're concerned that it might not work out, you could approve it with an expiration date of a couple of years or so. So I think you should give her the opportunity to allay your concerns or not. If she can't, then she can't, and she has her day in court, as I said to the chairman. But I think, like I said, you should give her the opportunity to at least make her case before you. The zoning regulations do prohibit, as a home business, as a home occupation, personal services, and then it goes on to describe them. For example, a barber, nail salon, things of that sort, those kind of personal services. I personally don't think that this falls under that category. There may be other reasons why you might decide you wanted to deny it. But I think it, like I said before, it meets the minimum requirements to at least earn your consideration, and then let the chips fall where they may after the public hearing.
Okay. We hear what you're saying, but let's look at the regulation, and then let's look at, she's coming in, she wants a kennel. There's only one type of kennel that you could have, and that's a commercial licensed kennel. And part of the state regulations require that it's licensed. This is not a licensed facility, number one. Number two, home occupations, any use customarily conducted entirely within a dwelling unit. And you're telling me that these dogs that are staying, she's babysitting, are brought into the house and they're never let outside? It does not, so that would preclude it from meeting that portion of the regulation entirely within the dwelling unit, which is used clearly, incidentally, and secondarily to the use of the dwelling for dwelling purposes and carried on by the residents of the premises, no more than one non-resident employee. That's the definition of a home occupation. And also under section F of 3.4.4, for the purpose of this section, home occupations and professional office do not include personal service uses such as, but not limited to, pet grooming, barbers, hair salons, and nail salons. The state regulations that regulate the commercial kennel require that it be licensed. They don't get in. They get into one of my main concerns is the health, safety, and welfare of the residents, because there's no way to police this. What are they doing with the waste? There's so many questions. This brings up more questions than it answers. So the state law does not define breeder. However, it does define a kennel as one pack or collection of dogs kept under one ownership at a single location, bred for show, sport, or sale. Thus, most people who breed dogs are considered kennel owners or keepers. And part of that regulation also calls for that we would allow a kennel if it's attached to a veterinarian operation. I believe that's correct, Dominic?
I think there's so much land is required too.
And there's also a land requirement also. I hear what you're saying, that we should have her day in court, but I would hate, does she pay the fee to apparently?
Mm-hmm.
I'd hate to just collect her fee and tell her no, because it doesn't, in my opinion, does not meet even the slightest home occupation definition. I mean, this is clearly, and she says it herself, she's advertised as a kennel. And the only type of kennels there are commercial kennels. It has to be has to be licensed by the state of Connecticut, which she is not. So it's up to you people. If you want to hear it, we could hear it, but I think it would be a disservice to her to take her fee and then tell her to, when she obviously doesn't meet any of the criteria for home, in that one instance. Then you get into all of the specifics of health, welfare, and safety and welfare, and particularly waste removal, and there's a whole litany of things that the state requires people that take care of dogs or a kennel operation is required to do. That's why they're licensed. They're licensed specifically so that someone is regulating them. It's a serious type operation. It can't be something where someone's doing it as a home occupation. That's why you never see them in a residence zone. They're always in a commercial zone. And there's strict requirements for our regulation as to how we could do it even in a commercial zone. Kennels. What's the section that talks about kennels?
I don't know. Offhand, I don't know.
There's a section that talks specifically about kennels. I just don't want to take her money and tell her and know in our hearts that this is such a monumental task to convince us that it's an allowed use as a home occupation.
3.15.1.
Which one?
3.15.1. Veterinarian hospitals and kennels, but only when the kennel is operated as an accessory to the veterinarian hospital.
That's what I thought it said. Any other area, does it say anything else about dog kennels? Is allowed use where it's allowed? Is it?
It's a special permit. It has to comply with 5.2 and 5.3.
What does that say?
I don't know, you're gonna have to have the planner fill in there. Those are the site plan, I believe, site plan requirements and stuff like that. And there might be requirements for next to a residential zone, I would imagine. But I don't see how this even falls under a home occupation.
It's up to you people. Bobby, you want to hear it? We could hear it.
No, I think
I just
under
wanna
what's
be
been
fair.
explained,
Stanley?
I don't think I want to hear it.
No,
Huh?
not the way it's been explained, no.
Michael?
I'll go along.
Well, you have an opinion that you think that it fits the, if you feel that it slightly fits the home occupation thing, then we could hear it. But I don't think that it's a hard case it's a hard sell to me when it's pretty specific. I mean, the one item that she can't meet is this entirely within the dwelling unit. I'm sure them dogs have to go outside sometime.
True, but I don't know if this is a comparison, but when, in a daycare, baby daycare, they're going outside also for
Yeah, but they're licensed by the state of Connecticut, and these people are also, as a kennel is licensed, and she is not licensed.
Well, I think that's what she's saying. She would not be licensed because she's keeping below the number that requires a state license.
Well, I don't know if that's what she's saying. I'm not
Right.
sure that that's what the regulations say. I don't know if what she's quoting is correct.
You don't think she deserves a chance?
It's whether it does it meet our regulations or not. Not deserve a chance, but you want to hear it.
Michael, the other Michael.
I'm torn. I'm a dog lover.
I am too.
And that's the problem, but if it doesn't meet it, then you probably waste your time.
Well, I have to admit, I was taken back when the chairman pointed out that we have the requirement that the business must be contained within. I thought, that's right. Yeah, I didn't think about that. But then Commissioner Fox raises a good point. Home daycare, baby daycare, obviously the kids go outside to play
Can't
for a little
equate
bit.
the dog kennel to a daycare.
Sure I
Because
can.
both of them, they both have to be licensed. And she is, even when a daycare comes into us for a special permit in a residential zone, it still has to be licensed by the state of Connecticut. You're saying that we're going to allow her to have a kennel, and she doesn't have to be licensed because she's doing it as a home occupation.
Well, what she's saying is, and of course, all I know is what she's saying, but she's saying that she's not a kennel because she doesn't have the 6 that the state requires. So
But the definition of a kennel,
we don't have one.
Yes, well, I'm telling you.
he just read the definition of a kennel.
And that's per the state of Connecticut.
Oh, but where is that? No, in our regulations, what is our definition of kennel?
Our definition of kennel is it has to have a veterinarian hospital
That's not a
with it.
definition, that's a description, that's a restriction, that's not a definition.
It's a requirement.
Fine, but it's not a definition.
What I
Here's
said
the-
was
here's
the
where-
definition of a kennel by the state standards.
Then you have that, you
But
have
we
your
don't follow the state
definition.
standards.
Okay,
We don't
you
care
have your
for the state
definition
standards.
book.
We have our
What
rules.
is, wait,
Yeah.
hang on. You have your definition book that you pull out, no, not that one.
Oh.
You know, that big
Yeah, the big-
encyclopedia.
right, yeah.
Why don't you bring that out and read it, what a definition of a kennel is?
Fair enough, I'll be right back.
We'll take a couple of minute recess while he gets his Bible.
It just stopped.
Huh?
Like Bob said, we gotta get the Yankee score while we're taking a break.
Good. Hey, we could hear it, and it'll get denied, and we just take her, we're basically just taking her money for nothing. And that's my problem.
We don't have a definition of kennel. But you have to go by the state's definition because it's a licensable business.
This is what you can do. I'm gonna come in
Bring
like
that
this.
from top of the set.
3 spaces here.
No,
Because
but
we need the green
no,
space.
I want
finish,
this,
Frank,
wait, no, I don't even wanna hear it, because this is what I want. I want this to be green. After this election, I'm gonna put on that we look at this LID, maybe eliminate it.
All right, that was my thought on it.
We want the green space, because if we don't get the green space here, even though it's not the 35 feet, at least it's 30 feet, but we're not waiving anything either. He has to come in and propose this. Then we get our green space, and then I don't have the same I'm gonna have, next couple of meetings, someone is coming in up the turnpike, same situation.
I understand, I heard that.
Okay,
All right, he's back. Call the meeting back to order.
okay,
Yep.
okay, we're back in session,
Okay, yes, I have, I'm reading from the New Illustrated Book of Development Definitions, which comes out of, it's printed by the Center for Urban Policy Issue Research at Rutgers. And definition of kennel, and there is a definition of kennel in here. It's just one sentence. A commercial establishment in which dogs or domesticated animals are housed, groomed, bred, boarded, trained, or sold, all for a fee or compensation. And then it goes on to say, as a comment, since kennels include animal runs, care must be taken in locating them away from residential areas and providing noise buffers or barriers. Many communities license kennels, establishing a minimum number of animals after which a license is required. So I would say it does not meet this definition of kennel, because a kennel, well, it's a commercial establishment, which she is, in which dogs, which is what she has, are housed. I think housed means overnight, and I don't think she takes them overnight. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. They do say overnight.
Boredom.
Okay. Groomed, she doesn't do. Bred, she doesn't. Boarded, well, if they're overnight, I would say that's boarded. Trained or sold, all for a fee. So I think the key is whether they stay overnight or not. If they stay overnight, I would agree it's a kennel, and then for whatever.
And
what
by
it's
by the state regulations, a kennel is a pack of dogs. The chairman read it. A pack of dogs that the owner owns all the dogs and is used for breeding purposes there. So anything else than that, if they're not your own dogs, it's a commercial kennel, and you have to get licensed. And there's a list of things that they have to comply with. So then when you come into our regulations say that we can't put a kennel up unless it has a veterinarian hospital with it.
Right.
So
But I'm not sure she's a kennel unless in fact they stay overnight. Because, not that I don't care about the state's definition, but I don't care about the state's definition.
It's a license, it's
Is
just
that-
like an auto, it's a licensable business. It cannot be in business without a state license.
But not if she stays below the threshold.
There is no threshold. There is no 3 dogs, 4 dogs. There's nothing like that. Matter of fact, there's a rule that says that if you advertise for kennel and boarding, you must have your license displayed on your advertisement, or there's a fine. Okay? This is not for health reasons. There's certain things that they have to comply with. That's why it's so hard to get a kennel license or a commercial kennel license.
Mr. Sarah, then Bob, Mr. Fox.
I'm sitting here listening to this, and as Commissioner Camillo said, I'm a dog lover also, but I don't necessarily agree with the applicant. However, she's willing to pay the money. She knows the risk that she may not get this. We hear stuff all the time that, should it or shouldn't it come before us. Let's give her day. Let her come out and explain what she wants to do. I mean, what's it going to cost us? A little bit of time?
Mr. Fox.
Yeah, I have to agree with Commissioner Sarah. For one thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but normally when we have an applicant here for to come before us as presented by the staff, do we always? I don't think we ever go through it as we are going through now, as if and I'm not saying it is. It sounds like somebody's done research and you've kind of, I won't say prejudged, but I will say prejudged, but not in the bad sense. I think let's give her a chance to prove that she meets whatever requirements.
The specific reason for putting the petitions for public hearing scheduling on the agenda for our review is that we review them and make sure that it meets some semblance of what they're coming in for. She's coming in for a home occupation, and the language that I've given you has proven that she does not even meet the lowest threshold of that regulation. If you would like to take her money, Mr. Fox, and have her come in here in knowing that she does not meet any of this, and not even the slightest bit of this regulation is under a home occupation, then I don't have a problem with that. I'll take her. I have a little more
Hasn't staff
mercy for these people.
already taken the money?
Oh, we would
give it back.
We would refund it if it's not accepted. Yeah, we've done that before.
I don't know if this is appropriate or possible, but is it for the staff to have another conversation with her and explain what we've come up with tonight and let her make the decision whether she still wants to go forward or not?
I like that idea. Yep.
That's fine.
I like that idea.
And then if she wants to hear it, she knows the risks.
Right, yeah. By statute, you don't have to begin the hearing for 65 days from tonight, so there's plenty of time for the staff to talk to her and let her decide if she wants to go forward or not.
So how do we lose this? You just table it, and
Yep.
you'll have it back on for petitions for scheduling?
Or not, depending
not.
on what she decides she wants to do.
I want to be fair. I want to be fair to this woman where she paid a fee. I don't want to take her money in knowing in my heart that she doesn't, when I read the home occupation definition, that it's not even close. It's not even close. And I don't know how she could convince us that it's something different than what it is. It's a kennel. And there's only one type of kennel, that's a commercial kennel. And it has to be licensed by the state of Connecticut. That's the rules, those are the things. Our own regulations require that it be attached to a veterinarian-type operation.
It's a separate structure also.
Huh?
A kennel's a separate structure also.
So what do you call it? You call it, you don't call it a kennel, you call it what? What is it?
Doggy daycare?
Yeah.
Doggy daycare?
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you have the conversation with her and try to, and if she insists on coming in, then let the chips fall where they may. And we'll hear it and maybe she has something that we don't know about that she could present if she's that, okay. Town planners report.
Okay,
I don't have to make a motion to table it, it's just.
no,
Okay.
correct.
Go ahead, Mr. Planner.
Okay, at the last TPZ meeting, I was asked to meet with representatives of the Economic Development Commission to discuss community signs. The meeting has been postponed. The EDC chairman is meeting across the hall, but she wasn't able to meet with us this afternoon as scheduled, so we'll reschedule that and come back to the commission with some more information at the next meeting, hopefully.
Okay.
And then the next item is a bond release. We haven't had one of these in a long time. The new owner of the Global Granite Building has substantially completed the site and has requested a bond release. And when you came in tonight, there was a motion, a draft suggested motion. I don't have one in front of me, but I recommend that we release all but I think $4,300 something.
It was 37,000.
40.
Yep. And the money being held back, some of it is for a fence that he hasn't put up yet. Some of it is for handicap signage, which hasn't been installed yet. And some of it is because the grass hasn't started growing yet. We always hold back the money until the turf is established.
Any commission comments or for the planner? You got a comment, Dominic?
No. I'll move to reduce the performance bond at 3320 Berlin Turnpike from $37,000 to $4,340. Findings: 1, the staff has inspected the site and found the work to be approximately 90% complete and substantially in compliance with the site plan approved by TPZ on April 23, 2008. The outstanding items are a missing fence, missing handicap parking signage, and the turf is not yet established. Conditions: none.
Second.
Motion made and second. Now, is there any comments on the motion in the second? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Go ahead and do
Okay, that's
whatever
all,
you have.
that's all I have.
Okay, next item is communications. Are there any communications? No. I did get a couple of emails from people on the Wetlands Commission. Escapes me their names, but they were unable to attend tonight. There was 2 people, and they had the same comments that the chairman. They feel that they would like to see it reinstated as it was in 1988. Just for the record, that I did receive some communications. Next item, public participation. Anyone from the public wishing to speak at this time, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, Carol.
Carol Annis, 30 Harding Avenue, and I'm also a member of the Town Council. Has there been any developments on HDC 1, the project on the mountain with the state?
Actually, we got a call from the owner yesterday asking if it's okay for them to put up a coming soon type sign on the property.
But there's been nothing from the state about the traffic?
I wouldn't know about where they are with the OSTA.
Because we asked, the Economic Development Director was at our meeting last evening, and we asked him a host of questions. And we were just curious to follow up on that.
I can contact the owner and find out.
Okay, thank you.
He's going to put up a real estate, some type of coming soon real estate sign up on the property. So that's a good indication that he's moving forward with the project. But we don't have a specific timeline of when he's going to get in there and really start doing anything.
Okay.
And I'm not aware of anything from the state DOT as far as.
Do you know if he's filed his application with them?
I do not know. I know, well, he was talking with them through the whole process, but I don't know if he's filed any official paperwork with them.
Okay, thank you.
You know, the DOT, sometimes they take quite some time to do this. You know that they were the ones that held up the mobile gas station from proceeding because of some drainage rights and so forth and so on. So sometimes they don't move as fast as we would like to see them move.
Well, I want them to really take their time because there's been very close calls since they've done the straight, because of the solid line goes so far up, people are cutting people off to get into, health tracks. And it's very, very dangerous, because now I go straight, I don't come off the Berlin Turnpike anymore. And several times I've had to slam on my brakes because somebody has cut over. So I just hope that they just take a serious look and make sure whatever they do there is going to be the safety for not only residents who are living in that new project coming out, but as well as people that are traversing Cedar Mountain, because it's, and I almost got rear-ended. I had to slam my brakes and the person just went into the other lane because of the sun. So I'm just really concerned about the safety of everybody. And people
That's
cutting
something
over.
that the state of Connecticut DOT is gonna have to really look at, because they're the ones, it's their highway. They made the corrections to that intersection with that island thing, and
And
then.
it does move the traffic. I gotta give them credit for that, but, I mean, it's because of the health tracks and people cutting and.
Their solution, Stanley? What's the solution? Cut.
What do you mean?
Is there a solution by changing the striping on the road, or is there something that they can do? What's the
There's
solution?
a couple things, but, that's up to DOT.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I just.
but there are options, I'm sure.
There's at least one viable option I know of, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. I requested this of the town council last night, and tonight you made reference to a town attorney's opinion and whether it was in writing or not. I just think personally that I'd like to see a town attorney's opinion in writing if it's going to be used as a determining factor in how a decision is come to around this table, just the same way as I asked last night with the town council, that if they're going to reference a town attorney's opinion, that it be in writing so that the people around the town council table can see what he's said. Sometimes verbal communications lose the interpretation when it gets repeated. Just my own thought. And with Commissioner Payne mentioning the McDonald's and how things changed around there, I was just wondering if there's been anything about the drive-through and that island there. I still think it's kind of dangerous. I see still people pulling in, and are they doing anything about that? And
Not that I know of. I know what you mean. I see
Yeah.
it too, but I don't know that anybody's doing anything about it.
so it's kind of like holding still.
Until either the state comes in and complains to McDonald's that their customers are not complying with the no left turn sign, but I don't see
No,
that
but I mean, they're not doing
happening.
anything with the drive-through or any, didn't they come here and want to do something with the drive-through?
Oh, to reconfigure it?
Then
Yeah.
move it back, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
thought
I
they
didn't
did.
know that they didn't. I don't go there that often. I wasn't aware that they hadn't rebuilt it per the new plan.
Not that I know
Oh,
of,
maybe not. Like I said, I don't go there that often.
because I know that,
You have some information on that, Bobby?
Not new information, but I do remember when McDonald's did come in, and part of the agreement was for moving their board back, for making some of the changes they wanted to make. They were supposed to change the cut,
Teardrop Island.
Teardrop Island, raise it, and paint it
Those were all
fluorescent colors, so
conditions of
it was all conditions of the approval for them to move the signboard.
Because I've never signed a plan. I don't believe I've signed a plan.
Okay.
For McDonald's. So apparently they haven't moved forward with the
Interesting.
project at all. Any reconfig. I know that they made overtures to us about changing the reader boards into digital ones, which we said no. Other than that, they come in, we got a lot of people come in, they ask for stuff, we rush to get them through here in a timely manner, and then it just sits there and nothing ever happens. A good instance of that is the Chick-fil-A. We
well,
worked
that's-
real hard to get it, and I thought that the building would be down at this point, and they're still playing around with engineering.
I kind of got the thought when they were here from Chick-fil-A that even though, I mean, you were doing the best you could do, and when it got brought up last night at the town council, I think maybe I misunderstood Mr. Brecker when he said the delay was here. I didn't think there was any delay here.
But you've been to all of these meetings, which is good,
That's
because,
it.
and you heard it. If we went any faster, the
Oh,
people
yeah.
would have fell over leaving the room.
Because Commissioner Camillo and Commissioner Fox were sitting behind me or next to me, and I turned around and I said, did I miss the meeting that
No,
they
you
held it
didn't,
up?
you didn't miss anything. It was just a lack of understanding or a lack
miscommunication
of
there.
communication or not having all the facts when he
But I
gave
also
an
didn't,
opinion.
I didn't think that they were going to rush into taking down the building either. I think that, I got the impression that it wouldn't be until springtime that they were going to even start building. But in any case, I just
Well,
thought
they're still, from my conversations with my town planner, is that they still have engineering problems that they're working through. Their engineering that they've hired cannot satisfy our town consultant engineer.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate the answers.
Mr. Chairman, is that because of the LID again?
No, it's because, and I'm not an engineer, but as I described it to someone the other day, the plan shows a 8-inch pipe going from here to there for the intent of carrying a certain amount of water from there to there. That's what the plan shows. But the applicants need to submit all the math to prove that a pipe of that size, that length, that pitch will in fact accommodate the amount of rain that falls in a 25-year storm. And they're just not, the applicant's engineer is just not able to submit the data in the proper format to prove that their plan will do what it says it'll do.
But that was all the existing plan that was approved originally. So why do we have to get sign-offs duplicate?
It's not, no, this is new. This is a new drainage system.
I,
Drainage.
well,
It's the new system for this building.
I understand, but there was the pipe that went through, it was carrying all the same water. I just, frankly speaking, Mr. Chairman, I think the LID is causing major problems for all kinds of businesses coming into town.
Well, we'll have to, I have the same feeling that it's a lot of hangups in some of these things that, on LID, maybe it's something that we have to take another look at. I mean, so we could bring that up at a future meeting and put it on the agenda for discussion. And if the commission sees fit, we could have a public hearing on it again and make changes to the LID. We could make changes to it, so. Okay. As far as the town attorney's concerned, we don't regulate how he does his business. That's a council, town manager situation. We try not to get opinions from attorneys because we're the ones that's supposed to give the opinions and interpret our regulations. So I'm hesitant to get a lot of attorneys' opinions on, we could get them on all kinds of stuff. We could get it on kennels and all the rest of this stuff. But we're the ones that are supposed to interpret in the regulations and make judgments on the regulations as far as the,
Yeah.
So I try not to get into a lot of situations where we're asking the town attorney for his opinion, because that's basically what attorneys do, is everyone has an opinion. Like, we got 6 opinions right here tonight. So, we can make our own opinions up. Okay, no, I don't see any other public participation, remarks by commissioners. Any remarks, Stanley, please?
Yes, just to go back to the McDonald's issue for a minute.
Yep.
I've asked several times, I know a couple times at the meetings here and a couple of times with Craig, is there any way the town can get a hold of the STC and have them put a bigger no left turn sign there? It's located behind the telephone pole. If you don't know what you're looking for, you're not going to see it. That might help the situation a little bit at the present time. This commission could probably send them, the OSTCA, rather, I'm sorry, send a letter, but it would be more effective coming from the town manager or the town planner or the town engineer. The sign is small. It's like a 24-inch sign. You need like a 30-inch sign here that says no left turn.
In front of the pole.
Sure.
And in front of the pole, not behind it. Actually, I think it's behind a 35-mile-an-hour sign too.
Okay.
As far as, Stanley, as far as the application, I know we heard it, we made approvals and everything. I mean,
Right.
I'm
No,
surprised, you know, and I never think about, well, did they do it or not?
Right.
But, you know, I'm thinking about it now. I never even signed the plan, so
Right.
they're not, they haven't done or started or done
No.
anything.
You're 100% right. I've asked this before, even before McDonald's came in, because it's been an issue. I've seen cars get very close
We
there.
addressed the issue as part of our,
We did, but I'm saying, since McDonald's has not commenced the project at all, maybe what we could do is just take it as a safety item,
I
just
agree
maybe
with you 100%.
move forward with it. That's all I'm concerned with.
Okay, so.
Thank you.
If you could contact them.
Kevin
preferably in
Campbell,
writing.
District 1.
Okay, his phone number?
Any other commissioner remarks? Mr. Fox, you all set? Yeah. Bobby, yeah, good. Okay, I have no closing statements or remarks. Have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Made second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? See you in 2 weeks.